Hey, welcome on in, guys. Tobin here with you, and thanks for checking out the channel. Ready for another week out there, Heat Nation. Appreciate you guys stopping by. If you haven't already, please subscribe. We also got the Tobin and Leroy Show weekdays, 10 a.m. to 2 p.m., and you guys can get in on the chat every single day. So, a couple things going on in the world of the Heat. First of all, start off here. Let's congratulate the Heat first-round pick, Kel'el Ware, on his engagement. He had posted that on Instagram. So congratulations to the new Heat big man on his engagement. It looked very lovely. Did it on a boat and did it solid. It looked like he had the whole thing going on there for him. So congratulations to Ware and his fiance. Also saw this weekend, speaking of Heat Young Bucks, the Jaime Jaquez. I'm going to tell you something. Some of my favorite content ever during NBA summers is NBA players' camps when they go up against kids and they just block the holy hell out of them. It's never not funny to me. Every single time, it's hilarious. Now, every once in a while, you'll have some phenom kid who can put the moves and a player will underestimate and you're going to go viral. I felt like this, who this happened to all the time? Klay Thompson. Not to pull a Frog Boy bit, but it felt like Klay Thompson in the summer was getting memed all the time because some unsuspecting person, it wasn't even necessarily a kid. Sometimes it was, an individual in China who just posterized Klay Thompson. But I love that content. Every single time it's funny to me. All these kids trying to score on a 6'6" man it's hilarious. It's hilarious every single time. I love it. A couple things on the Heat stars today that I want to get into. So first off, there was a tweet from Bam Adebayo. I love the fact that Bam is being more is going to Twitter to clap back at certain things. I like the fact that he is going there and is, letting it be known that he's not pleased with certain things. He was very active during the Olympics. I hope it keeps up. I hope that's how he acts during the season, that we get a very busy-thumbed Bam Adebayo, especially during the regular season. But NBA 2K put out their top 5 perimeter defenders, and he is not on the list. He is not on the list. They have Derek White. They have Jalen Suggs. They have Herb Jones. They have Alex Caruso. And they have Drew Holiday. Now, all of them essentially guards. Herb, I guess you could swing a little bit, but he is not happy. And he put, all right, 2K, with the, kind of plain-faced, disappointed emoji, no emotion emoji, but blank stare emoji. He's not pleased about it. And I hope, once again, the man is taking receipts and taking all this stuff of note. I do feel like this was a great summer for him. He had the situation where it was talked that he was going to be benched, and then has the big game against South Sudan. He had himself a pretty tremendous Olympics. Didn't end up being a huge factor in the closing games, but wasn't a non-factor either. It was not a it wasn't like he was getting DNP coaches' decisions out there like other players. But I am hoping that this leads to a Bam Adebayo who is a little bit more motivated and has all these receipts ready to rock. It was interesting. I saw this article. Now, I've never heard of this website before. And I went to it to say something because I was like, what? It was kind of odd. I saw this peruse around Heat Reddit, I think. Maybe it was Heat Twitter. But it was this site, TWSN. I've never heard of them. But they actually wrote an article about why they think Bam Adebayo will win MVP. And I thought, originally, is this a gambling website? Because you're just taking, a huge swing on it? Because I'd imagine Bam Adebayo's MVP odds are insane. Bam Adebayo MVP odds 2024, 25. Bam Adebayo to win MVP this year, according to Vegas Insider, he is listed at BetMGM at plus 25,000 to win MVP, which is the same as Tyler Hero. It's essentially saying we don't think you're going to win MVP. Jimmy Butler is the same amount of odds. It's funny, the Heat's top 3 players all have the same amount of odds. Right now, the favorite to win MVP tied is Luka Doncic and Nikola Jokic. And then Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, Joel Embiid, and Giannis Antetokounmpo, with Anthony Edwards kind of on the outside looking in. Jalen Brunson after that. Victor Wembanyama switches on certain apps, and we'll see. Don't be surprised that, hey, this could be the year of Tatum too. Everybody's gonna feel bad for Tatum and try and make it we feel bad about Team USA. He's got a thing to prove this year. So be on the lookout for Jason Tatum propaganda this year. Although this was interesting. Jared Greenberg of Turner Sports does a great job. One of their sideline reporters. He had tweeted that they have banned voters from betting on awards, which you may ask yourself, that wasn't banned already? Apparently not. It was not banned already. And I got to tell you, as a fan of the game, to know that these people who could bet on the awards, who we see these ballots that come out all the time. There's a big bias that comes out with a lot of these awards. To know that they could also gamble on that stuff, because this stuff swings, man. I was just talking about this on the pregame show about the NFL MVP with Tua, right? That thing goes up and down like the stock market. It's crazy. It's very, very volatile. NBA is not as. It feels like, they kind of have a 3-pronged system for the year, where it's like by Christmas, by the All-Star break, and then kind of the stretch run of who's going to win MVP. But it's very, very narrative driven. I don't know if there is an award that's more narrative driven than the MVP. So it was interesting. And look, there's a few podcasts out there with these voters, and a lot of them openly talk about the gambling that they do on this award. And it's pretty crazy when you think about, the type of influence they have on that narrative and the betting lines and working for betting companies that. And I'm not an anti-gambling guy. Like I am all for people having fun, but there are certain things that you got to keep your hand out of the cookie jar for when you're having that kind of an influence on the odds, right? There's I'm okay with, guys going out there and even betting on themselves. I'm okay with fighters betting on themselves. But you start betting against yourself, it's obviously a problem. You don't want to be Jonte Porter. And I didn't know that if you had a ballot, you were still eligible to vote for this stuff, because, the narrative really does swing on it. And so, interestingly enough, getting back to this article that TWSN wrote, they basically wrote, they said that BAM, their big article of it, I'll let you guys go find the article and read it, but their reasoning was defensive prowess, Jimmy Butler not quite being what he is, and that, his summer in the Olympics will be a big launch for him, which has been said by the likes of Kevin Love, that he thinks that's going to be a big influence for him. It's not an unfamiliar thing that we've heard, that the summer of the Olympics can be a big deal. It's not Bam's first Olympics, but everybody has said this was a little bit different because of the stakes of the team, all the guys that were on it, his performances, his 3-point shooting, his performance, there's crazy crowds, all that type of stuff, that this one will have a little bit of a different feel. And there was also another report that had come out that said, Spo Ty Lue, they're banting about who's going to get the gig. All respect to Ty Lue, nice coach. Eric Spoelstra should get that gig if he wants it. But as far as Bam winning MVP, here's the thing with Bam that he has to do. Like, first of all, you have to up the scoring a lot if that's going to be the case. And I just don't know on a team like the Heat have, where there's just such a spread around and there's not necessarily that hierarchy in the regular season. I just don't see how he really gets in the game for it. You'd have to be like Hassan Whiteside, honestly, with counting stats of blocks. And Bam last year, was 46th in scoring. He didn't average 20 points last year. You're going to have to average, at the very least 26 points a game. And so unless Bam does become a perennial shooter and is getting to the free throw line at a Jimmy Butler rate, I don't see that being a possibility. I don't. I think Defensive Player of the Year certainly is now more on the radar that he's finally made a first-team all-defense, and everybody acknowledges what a great defender he is. Although I think, speaking of narratives, like Wembanyama is going to be the darling of every voter this year, gambling or no gambling. And I, as a a guy who is very, very much a huge fan of Bam Adebayo, I think that's a big leap to think that. And it's also just the way that the team is built up, like I think just the way that everything is divvied up with this squad, Jimmy Butler still essentially being his team, and we really don't know what Jimmy Butler we're going to get with this squad, right? Like there is a big question and that kind of leads me into excuse me, my next point of this. Jimmy Butler, who is in China, by the way. We got the reasoning why he's not going to be at the Goran Dragic game. He is there for Lee. So thanks a lot, Lee Ning, for taking Jimmy away from our Goosey's moment. Him not in Slovenia for Gogi's game. But ESPN, the Hoop Collective podcast, which is hosted by Brian Windhorst, Tim McMahon, and Tim Bontemps, they did a buy-sell segment as if the teams were stocks. Good segment. And they said you had to go one way or another. No soft, no hold, nothing. You had to pick one way or the other. And they did a buy-sell segment, and Jimmy Butler was Brian Windhorst's big reason why the Miami Heat was a stock that he was going to buy. And that he said that Jimmy Butler, as a highly motivated free agent, is going to be a different animal. He thinks that the Heat have had miserable health luck over the last couple of years. That is dead on true. And he says, I'm saying buy the Heat because Jimmy Butler is going to be highly motivated. At times, it seems like Jimmy Butler looks for reasons not to play. True. And maybe the prevailing situation. But I believe that Jimmy Butler is going to be in killer mode trying to prove himself to the Heat or whoever else in the league. Which, man, it's the big mystery of the question. It's the big mystery of the summer, right? Like, Jimmy has basically done no press. He does his own thing. The only thing we really got on Jimmy Butler was a report, not even from him directly, but from Shams, that Jimmy Butler was no longer seeking the extension from the Miami Heat and that he was just going to opt out no matter what at the end of this year, which is interesting. I am curious to see, when Jimmy Butler actually gets asked questions about it, if the Heat did come to him, which I don't think they are. But if he did get asked about it, if the Heat did offer that extension, does he really say no? I don't know. Or was that kind of something to save face that he didn't? He knew they weren't going to, so then all of a sudden it's like, all right, well, we're going to go free agency no matter what. And does this mean that the end of the Jimmy Butler Heat era is upon us either way? I'm not sure. This is the one thing that's interesting with Jimmy is he is a different cat. He does march to his own beat. And when you say that he's going to be highly motivated and in killer mode, what does that mean? And I think the number one thing for the Heat fan is you just want availability. You just want Jimmy Butler out there for at least 65 games. If you could get that, you'd be like, thank the basketball gods. You're hoping if you can press your luck and get to 70, okay, but I'm not going to be unrealistic about this thing. I think that if you get 65 from Jimmy, I'd be pleased with that. And Jimmy does play a very physical style of basketball. It's not like he's out there loafing it. I can't imagine Jimmy Butler. We go back to scoring. Jimmy Butler's usually been a guy in the regular season, averages around 21 points. Do I see a scenario where he's in the categories of a 26, 27? I just don't. I don't think Jimmy Butler's ever going to compromise the way he plays basketball, which is, as we know, not a guy who naturally looks to score all the time, does like to facilitate, get his teammates involved, is a two-way player, does look for those easy ways to score in passing lanes, isn't necessarily looking for his own shot all the time, is a very efficient basketball player. But also plays very physical. For it's not like he's out there and is a turnstile and is loafing it. When he does play, the guy, as he said, we talk all the time about his shooting, and he goes, I don't like that. I like to crash into people. I like to see who's going to wilt first. And that is a taxing toll. And it is probably why Jimmy Butler has gone into the mentality of, all right, almost like how many of these can I pass on before I get to the playoffs where I really have to go balls to the wall on it? Can that actually change when he's going after a contract? When does that become the goal instead of the winning? And I just don't necessarily know that Jimmy's wired like that. I don't. I think that the big thing is, hey, just being out on the court, but to change the way he plays or to be like playoff Jimmy in the regular season and to compromise the way that he plays just because he's looking for a contract, I don't know. I think that if Jimmy Butler is just available and the Heat have a good playoff run, I think that's going to be enough for the Heat to give an extension. And look, I was on the record, and if that was even a possibility, I said give Jimmy Butler his extension. I wanted Jimmy Butler to get paid. I think he deserved it. Is what it is. We're now at this point of the contract talks. But for me, him in killer mode or that he's going to be playing in a different type of style, I just don't think he's wired like other guys are. I think that when you think he's going to zig, he's going to zag. That's Jimmy Butler's the ultimate contrarian. On the court, in interviews, in life, he does things to a different beat. I don't think he's ever going to waver off of that stuff. Could things still get toxic this year? Hey, it's definitely a possibility. We've seen it get bad in other spots. It's gone really, really great with the Miami Heat, knowing there are prickly moments off the court with him too. Just that's dealing with the person that is and the star that is Jimmy Butler. So could it, if the season goes bad, if things aren't going the way that he expects, if he is still banged up because of his age, could it get really, really? Yeah, I suppose it could. You can't rule it out, but he is a different guy. He's not who he was at 27. He's in his soon-to-be mid-30s. He is a father now. He is a bigger stature in the league. Everybody kind of recognizes that it is his franchise. So I suppose there's also the possibility, like, Bam did get his extension. He did not. So there are still avenues where this doesn't go great all the way, and it could go completely wrong. But ultimately, man, I think if Jimmy Butler is on the court playing for the Miami Heat, everything's going to kind of figure itself out. Will that put him or Bam Adebayo in MVP contention? I just think it's a big swing from where both guys have played in their careers and what they've been as players in their careers. That's just not the way they go about basketball on the court. Like, they're two-way players. They're grizzled. They play very hard. And the fact that they're as effective defenders as they are and still score the way that they do kind of speaks to their brilliance. But it doesn't get MVP votes. So, interesting thoughts from the national narrative out there. And be interesting to see what this all unfolds this season.